Hi, I'm Maggie McGrath, Senior Editor at Forbes, and today we're joined by Kim Elsesser. She's a Senior Contributor for Forbes.com, and she recently wrote about a fascinating study about the ways in which fertility benefits could backfire on employers. Kim, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
To set the stage, I know from my perch as ForbesWomen editor and covering this space, more and more companies are offering fertility benefits. I feel like I've seen this anecdotally. I don't have the numbers top of mind, but can you just set the stage a little bit? How has this employee benefit grown in recent years?
Yeah, fertility benefits have grown as we've seen so many benefits that these companies are offering are growing as they are trying to attract and retain the best talent. Fertility benefits in particular have grown. About 40% of large companies now offer IVF, for example, in vitro fertilization. And 1 in 5 companies now offer egg freezing, which is sort of the newest of these benefits to be offered. And that's about 3 times as many as were offering egg freezing in 2015. So it is really growing quickly.
That's fascinating. I know that the science and the technology has been evolving too. It's not as if egg freezing was around in the 1970s to offer as an employee benefit in the way, say, a 401k might have been. So it feels like employers are keeping up with the times. But one of the interesting things that you are now looking at is this study that found the potential downsides in offering fertility benefits. Can you talk about, well, first, what are the upsides? Why are we seeing this growth of this benefit being offered?
So these companies are working really hard to attract and retain the best talent. And they also want more diverse talent, which includes hiring more women. And so they're offering these fertility benefits. And these procedures are insanely expensive, and most people wouldn't be able to afford them on their own without the help of their employer. So there's definitely an upside for employees who receive these benefits.
But you looked at a study that looked at the downside. So how could this backfire? Because I agree, it's tremendously expensive. I'm of the age that a lot of my friends are now talking about doing this and talking about the price tag. So to have an employer help, to me, seems like a good thing. But what's the negative side that we're not all thinking about?
Yeah, the organizations agree with you. They're touting these benefits to try and attract potential employees. And it turns out this study found that it's maybe doing just the opposite. They looked at egg freezing in particular, and they found that in their studies, the potential job candidates were less attracted to companies that offered egg freezing. And it was because they interpreted it as a signal that the company was asking them to sacrifice their personal life for work. So they were asking them to postpone childbirth so that they could work more years.
So a potential employee, a job seeker perhaps, is looking at, oh, this company offers X number of days off and X percent 401k match, and oh, they're going to pay me to freeze my eggs. Does that mean they want me to never leave the office? Is kind of the narrative in some people's heads.
Exactly. They tried all different mixes of benefits. And when they added the egg freezing into the mix, people were less attracted to the company. And then when they asked them why, it was because they interpreted it as a signal of the corporate culture that they were supposed to spend more time in the office and sacrifice their personal lives.
So that to me feels like a communication failure on the part of the companies. What can then well-intentioned employers do who want to offer this health benefit, who don't want to necessarily send the message that some of these potential employees were receiving when they saw that? How would you recommend reframing this?
Yeah, the authors of the study, who are 2 researchers from NYU, recommend a couple things. They do not recommend that they scrap the policies. Like I said, they're very expensive, so they're very beneficial to the people who use them. They do recommend to first address it directly. say to your employees, like, I realize that this benefit could be misinterpreted, but that's not how we're intending it. We just want to support you, and we're not encouraging you to use it in any way, but it's here if you want to use it. And the second thing that they recommend is you may not want to necessarily tout this benefit to prospective candidates who don't know your company very well. People who've worked for your company for 5 years aren't going to be reading into your egg freezing benefit to determine your corporate culture, because they already know what the corporate culture is. But people who are looking for a job that don't know so much about your corporate culture may be looking for signals. So they may be more likely to read into the egg freezing benefits. So you may want to not advertise it too much to people who don't know the company as well.
Which is so interesting, because then people who can become pregnant and might wish to become pregnant, who might want this information, this is just supposition, but if they're asking those questions on a job interview, there's this kind of mental chess or game theory going on, I would imagine, where a prospective employee doesn't want to make it sound like they're immediately going to be taking parental leave. So there's a lot of shying away from the issue that could potentially happen here. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, open communication is really the best way to approach this. Their first piece of advice, which was to just directly confront that they realize this could be controversial and could be misinterpreted, but to explain that the benefit is really just there to support employees that want to use it, is really the best way to go.
Open communication, I think, no matter what the scenario, is probably the best way to go. What's your recommendation for either employees or prospective employees who, for what I just alluded to, might be afraid to ask the question because of then the perception that they could give about their plans to be taking leave and such?
Yeah, I mean, there is still discrimination against women who plan to take leave. Most of these benefits are widely available on websites, so people can easily look them up if they are afraid to discuss it in an interview. But if you are interested in pursuing these things, and an organization discriminates against you in some way, you probably wouldn't be very happy at that organization anyway.
Now, you posted this story and received an interesting reader comment, or a few different reader comments that I wouldn't have expected to hear, but can you share the reaction to this piece?
Yeah, some of the reactions were, many of the reactions were, this is a really valuable benefit and organizations need to keep providing it. Some people thought that corporations are evil and they're trying to keep women from procreating. But one woman wrote something really interesting. When she first started a new job, the first week they were giving out free flu shots. And she wrote that she got really worried because she interpreted that as a corporate culture that didn't allow people to call in sick or to get sick. And so it just illustrates how so many benefits can be misconstrued and how really important open communication from the employer is to explain why they offer these benefits and what their philosophy is about these things.
I was fascinated by that when you told me that, because I love the free flu shots that came to the office. And now that we're in this hybrid environment, I had to sign up for my flu shot on my own, and through a failure of scheduling, I still haven't received a flu shot. So my message is keep offering those free flu shots and also continue to support employees. And I think above all, the overarching conclusion I have from talking to you today is it's really incumbent upon employers and HR departments just to be very clear and open in their conversation around these.
Exactly. I think the open communication and explaining why you have these policies is the most important way that employers can use these to attract the best potential employees.
Well, Kim, thank you so much for writing that story, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.